Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube audiobook series for The Forbidden Truth, written by Abby Matthias. I am Darius, and today I will be introducing Chapter 15. If you missed Chapter 14, link is in the description below, along with the playlist for this book. And if you are all caught up and ready to go, we'll move on to Chapter 15, Sexual Relations.
As Scarlett left my driveway, I couldn't help but dwell within my overwhelming feeling of happiness. By some miracle, we all became friends again with one another. My oldest friend finally came to her senses and realized her wrongdoings. Scarlett was officially back to the way she was before all of the drama, and I couldn't be happier. Damien wrapped his arm around my waist as I was in a trance and turned myself towards him. Then, he began to kiss my lips gently, bringing me into a new sort of hypnosis. I don't know what exactly made him want to kiss me in a moment like this, but I clung to every sensation he was giving me. I felt like I was electric and loved every bit of it. I ran my fingers through his soft hair and tenderly caressed his head with my hand. His other hand moved to the center of my shoulder blades and slowly pressed me into him. Now we were chest to chest and waist to waist. Our hands somewhat became as venturous as mine made their way to his broad back. His, however, traveled down to my hips and ass. Eventually, his hand cupped one cheek, while the other stayed on my side. I knew this was leading down a risky route that I have never been on before. Yet, it felt right, and I think I wanted it to happen. The only thing was that I didn't know what to do or say. So I allowed Damien to take control of the situation. After about a long minute, Damien stopped kissing me and was short of breath. I was too, but I think I concealed it better than he did. He was practically panting as I could smell his passion fruit scent cologne. "What's the matter, handsome?" I teased. He smiled and chuckled as his eyes closed for a second, yet that didn't stop him from talking during his moment.
You bewitch me in every way. Your beauty, your personality, and your touch just drive me crazy.
"But what about my kiss?" I said with a wicked sexual tone. I didn't mean for it to sound like that, but it just slipped out of my mouth.
I think you already know your kiss is the most wicked spell you use to make me yours.
From his comment, I felt my face begin to blush. I knew that was true because I felt the same way towards him. Everything he did around me just drove me crazier for him. Yet at the same time, I couldn't believe how I had one of the hottest guys on the planet. He was literally the hottest guy in our grade, and every girl wanted to be with him. Yet here he was dating a fat, unathletic girl who loved art. I still couldn't believe he was mine, yet he interrupted that thought as I was trying to process it.
I know what I want to do,
he said with a low but soft voice. "And what is that, my love?"
I want to kiss that pretty mouth of yours and lay in your bed. I want to show you all my affection and devotion to prove I am yours. I want to give you all of me and pledge myself to you.
For a moment, I stood stun-locked at his words. He never talked like that before, and it made my stomach tighten a bit. I didn't really know why, but I was starting to like the feeling as it stayed within my abdomen. However, eventually I smiled at Damien once more and spoke. "If that is what you wish to do with your time, who knows when you'll get an opportunity like this again?"
Exactly my point.
After that response, he swooped down and swiped my legs off the ground. After a moment of shock, I realized he effortlessly picked me off the ground, and I was being held within his arms. I knew he was strong to begin with, but I never imagined him being able to pick me up without struggling. My eyes were wide as they could go, while a giant smile appeared on my face. He just gave me his love smolder and said one final thing.
Let the fun begin.
Damien then began to walk with me in his arms, opened and closed the basement door, and traveled to my bedroom. Upon entering, he gently laid me on the bed as if I was extremely delicate. It was definitely romantic to say the least, and I was speechless about the action. However, I couldn't help but be in awe about how he was acting. This was something that I have never seen before in my life, not even with my ex. He was passionate, tender, and smooth in every way. I didn't know what was happening, but my body kept reacting in ways I didn't know about. I've only felt these sensations a handful of times, and they were always around Damien. The best way I can describe it is in phases, and in total, there were 2 of them that I knew of. The first phase always started with quickened breathing and blushing. My boyfriend has pointed it out multiple occasions and has called it cute. I don't necessarily know why. To me, it was embarrassing. Why would anyone want to see me like I ran a marathon without actually doing it? Plus, the whole blushing thing was already something I hated to do. Most of the time, it displayed how uncomfortable I was within a certain circumstance. Yet as of this moment, I was somewhat okay with everything. So as I was within this phase and laid on my bed, Damien closed the door and crawled into bed next to me. The only thing was that he didn't lay normally like I thought he was going to. Instead, he began to straddle me within his legs and lowered his torso so his arms held himself up. As of this moment, we were both face to face as we stared into each other's eyes. The optics that I gazed at were so beautiful. The deep ocean blue eyes that belonged to him were hypnotizing me and calling for me to kiss him. However, I didn't want to push for it to happen. My brain wanted to act out, yet this was Damien's time. He was controlling the situation, so it goes the way he wants it to. I had to allow him that.
Are you okay?
He asked with a lowered voice. Of course I'm fine. Why wouldn't I be? I replied back with the same amount of gentleness.
Because of how far this may go. If at any time you feel uncomfortable and want me to stop, tell me. I am not here to traumatize you or make you miserable. This isn't about pushing yourself to do what I want. We both should be having fun, not just me.
I know. I will let you know if I am not okay with something. At my understanding, he smiled and kissed my lips once more. Mouth upon mouth now, my stomach began to tighten more as my breathing picked up again. Having Damien in this position really changed the way I could touch him. So experiencing this for the first time, I allowed my hands to wander as they were placed on his ribs. They traveled down until they got to his waist and stopped to keep a hold of him. With just this moment, it sent me into phase 2 of my uncontrolled sensations, stomach tightening, and tingles that filled my senses. The taste of Damien upon my lips was sweet. However, he began to maneuver them away from mine while making a trail down the left side of my face. Eventually, his lips made it to the crook of my neck and stayed there as I flinched upon the action. I involuntarily shook, and I wanted to apologize to my boyfriend, yet the shake didn't refrain him from smooching the side of my neck. What I was experiencing was foreign and very risky. However, it was beginning to feel really good. As to exactly why, it was confusing me completely. It was just a kiss that was placed lower on my body. Yet with each one Damien gave me, my mind was blown away with surprise and happiness. Eventually, after a couple minutes, he sat himself up and left me breathless. Now, we were both panting at the same rate. Pushing that fact aside, Damien now looked down at me with a soothing smirk and spoke.
Are you getting hot? Your face is beet red and your breath keeps hitching. Would you like me to take off your shirt?
Without thinking, I nodded my head violently as the warmth was consuming my flesh. I didn't notice it before, yet at the mere mentioning of it, I felt as if I was catching on fire. So as I sat myself up, Damien grabbed the bottom of my shirt and gently lifted it before I could do it myself. Then just like that, my torso was bare in front of him. Suddenly the air was chilled as I realized my breasts were openly exposed also, as I forgot to put on a bra before Damien came in. However, I could see from his facial expression that it was a blessing in disguise. His eyes closed again while a wider smirk appeared on his face. Not only that, but I heard him somewhat let out a deep chuckle or a hitched sound as he was affected by the sight. Once he was able to recuperate, he instructed me on what I should do.
Miss Davis, you are beautiful. I'm so lucky to have you as my girlfriend. You have been so generous to go this far with me. It's only fair if we go farther together. If you would like, you can take off my shirt.
After his statement, I hesitated for a moment as I was in utter shock. This was going to be the first time I see him shirtless. Yet my body was somehow excited at the thought of undressing him instead of scared. Again, I didn't know what I was feeling or why I was so desperate. But I knew once his shirt was off, a new face would present itself to me and start taking control over my body. Once I was done reflecting, I moved my hands to the top button of his shirt and slowly undid them. Eventually, I got to the very bottom and pushed the shirt off his shoulders to view his wondrous torso. Damien was very muscular to the point where he had a lovely six-pack for abs. His chest was broad as his pecs were sharply outlined from the rest of his body. Finally, his arms also showed a good amount of muscle that he developed over time. Most of these features were hidden from the world, yet he allowed me to see it. All I wanted to do now was kiss the ever-living shit out of him until we became one. Desires were the only thing that filled my thoughts. I wanted him more than ever, so I grabbed a hold of his head and began to kiss him myself. Of course, he was taken aback because of it, but gradually transitioned us back into a laying position to continue on. From there, it got a little rougher than before. My body reacted to his kiss while my hands traveled to his chest and stomach. His skin smoothed to the touch while his soft lips traveled once more. This time, however, he made his way to my breasts and kissed in between them at first. Not knowing what was coming next, Damien's lips inched closer and closer to my right nipple with every kiss until he was right on top of it. Then with swiftness, he latched onto it and tugged to make it fall out of his mouth. Upon the action, my body jolted violently while a gasp sounded from me. A sudden shock of pleasure spread throughout my entire body while affecting more of my lower abdomen and undercarriage. I didn't understand why that would have affected me so much, but at that moment I didn't care. I wanted it to fill my senses and consume me, just like I desired Damien to. He did that exact thing 2 more times with my right nipple, then moved to the left one to repeat the action. Every time my breast broke free from his lips, my body convulsed underneath him while the pleasure increased. Even a moan or two escaped my throat, letting Damien know what he was doing. Yet before anything more happened, he stopped and pressed his pelvis to mine, and I could feel his heart-on.
Do you feel that?
He asked with a deep voice. I couldn't say anything as I was speechless, so I nodded my head, knowing what he was asking me.
This is what I want to give to you. Yet I know you are a virgin and have never done this before. I want your permission before I take off the rest of my clothes. Do you want this?
I do, I whimpered. I just don't know what to do.
Don't worry about that. I will do the work. But for now, you can take off your clothes while I go and get protection from my car.
Protection? I questioned, feeling silly after it was out in the open.
Yeah, condoms. I have a pack in my car in case we went this far. So today I can open it and use one for you. I'll be right back.
He then exited the room and walked to get what he needed. As for me, I did as he requested and laid myself upon the bed again. As he got back, I seen a little black wrapper in his hand as he closed the door to my room. Then he stripped down and faced away from me. All I could view was his great ass, so firm and handsomely shaped to perfection. This entire man was practically sculpted by God, and for some reason he wanted to be with me. Though that seriously kept confusing me, Damien turned around and showed his most private area on his body as it stuck out tall and covered in rubber. My eyes widened extremely upon the sight of it, and I couldn't believe this was going to happen. His penis was going to be inside of me, and with that thought, my mouth began to smile.
Now I am going to say one thing.
He said, walking over to the bed again.
If you feel uncomfortable or want to stop at any time, tell me. I will understand. It might also hurt for a bit, as we will be popping your cherry. So I will make sure to go easy.
After the instruction, he crawled into bed and gently spread my legs apart. From that alone, my body uncontrollably shook with excitement for a moment. Yet that didn't scare Damien. He ended up hovering over me a moment longer and kissing me again. However, the kiss was quicker than normal, and he stopped after a few seconds. Then as he stared into my eyes, he asked a final question.
Are you ready?
Yes, I said without hesitation. From there, he gently inserted his dick into my vagina, and we had sex. As he said, I felt a pinch of pain as he was inside me. However, as we kept doing it, the hurt vanished. During this time, I found 3 more phases to add to this sexual process. Phase 3 was excessive moans and clenching of muscles, not just from me, from both of us. Then as things sped up, it sent us into phase 4, pleasure overload. I never thought in my life I would ever feel this good. However, I was proven wrong by making love with sweet Damien. Sweat, of course, scented the air, yet neither of us paid attention to it as the final phase took us over. Ecstasy. Pure and powerful ecstasy sent us over the edge and made me climax. Now, I officially orgasmed for the first time, and I was blown away by it. As we stopped, Damien pulled his penis out and paused slightly to recover. Then as he was able to, he took his condom off and thrown it away in my trash bin. I knew fully that I would have to change the trash out later, but it needed to be changed anyway. Yet the garbage with the used condom could wait. As of this moment, my boyfriend came back to bed, covered me up with my starry blue blanket, and laid to the left of me, concealing his body with the fabric as well. His arm laid flat upon the top of my pillow, and I scooted myself closer to him to lay my head on his shoulder. From there, we sat in silence and cuddled for a while. To be quite honest, I eventually fell asleep for about an hour or so. For when I woke up, Damien was smiling down at me while I still rested on his body. "Why are you smiling?" I asked with a tired voice.
Because you're cute when you sleep. But you're even more of a cutie awake.
I blushed at his comment as flattery began to sink in again. However, I tried brushing past it to move the conversation along. "How long was I asleep for?"
I don't know, and I don't care. You can sleep for however long you want.
Yet that wasn't my intention, good sir. My plan was to stay awake and keep you company. Guess I got too comfy.
Don't you dare apologize.
He said, interrupting.
It's truly okay. But if you want to look on the brighter side, you can talk to me now like you wanted.
With Damien's true statement filling my head, questions about what I experienced with him revealed themselves. However, one question stood out to me the most and made me nervous for its answer. Was this your first time as well?
What? Of course it was. Why would you assume it wasn't?
He said, taken aback. I mean, you knew exactly what to do and were prepared for it. The whole condoms in your car thing also made me question it.
Abby, my love, like I already said, I bought them in case we were going to have sex. Ever since we made out on your couch in October, I thought about getting them. The sexual part of our relationship was growing stronger each time we made out that I wanted to be prepared for when we did take it that far. All my intentions were to keep you safe and not disappoint you for when you were willing to have sex with me.
Well, you most certainly didn't disappoint. I'm glad you were my first, I said, placing my hand upon his chest again.
Really? You don't regret it?
Absolutely not. I love you, Damien, and I don't regret anything. After my statement, he gave me a kiss on my forehead, and I giggled a bit. All the thoughts were settling in that I had sex with my soulmate, and I wasn't freaking out about it. I felt euphoric from everything, and I was proud of myself. Back in September, I was scared of the thought of dating Damien. My true emotions were suppressed as my mind kept telling me that they were wrong to feel. Yet, with time and help from a particular person I could only see, I went all the way with the man of my dreams. So as I was dwelling within my reflections, I decided to turn myself on my back to give Damien's arm a rest. As I adjusted my body, my mind was consumed with fear and panic. For standing at the far end of the room near the corner of my desk was my protector demon glaring at me with wide eyes. How was I supposed to explain this to Darius? Well, ultimately, there was nothing to explain. He used to be a goddamn doctor and could easily see the writing on the wall. It wouldn't take him long to see the full picture and know what happened. And as he took that brief moment to figure everything out, his mouth opened in shock, while a slight chuckle came out as well. I couldn't tell if he was proud or if he was perplexed at the sexual action I took. Regardless, I didn't have a whole lot of time to examine him before Damien grabbed a hold of my shoulder and turned his body to me.
My love, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just got lost in thought. I was meaning to check the time before my brain took over. I'm sorry.
No need to apologize, my fair lady. I only wish for you to love me for who I am.
Well, I do. Very much. And I gave him a quick kiss to solidify my love for him. After that, I turned all the way over and checked the time while Darius made a quick comment.
I hope you know I'm going to talk to you about this later when you're not occupied.
What was there to talk about? There was no way I was going to explain my experience to him. What exactly did he want to discuss? Yet I wouldn't know until Damien left for home. So as I clicked the power button on my phone to view my lock screen, it read 1:30 p.m., and I grew relieved. I still had plenty of time with Damien to where Darius could forget about the instance. Thinking quickly, I turned back to my boyfriend and suggested a few ideas of what to do next. It's 1:30 in the afternoon. Would you like to go to town like we were originally going to do today? We could go out to lunch and figure out what we would like to do from there.
You know what? That sounds like a great idea. All this excitement made me hungry. Let's both get dressed and boogie on out of here.
Upon that statement, Darius immediately turned around to not see any naked bodies. However, taking a shot in the dark, I pretended to stretch out my arm to hopefully activate my intangibility. Of course, I didn't know if I could do that. However, I quickly realized that it did as the door to my new closet started to glow magenta. My protector demon grew shocked, yet he didn't hesitate to walk through to the other side of the door. From there, Damien and I got out of bed, got ready, and made ourselves presentable for the world. Before leaving, I quickly grabbed a small jacket so I wouldn't get cold, and to allow Darius to exit the closet without being super weird. So as everything was normal again, we all headed to Damien's car and got in it to drive to the city. I allowed sweet Damien to choose where we went for our meal, but it wasn't a surprise when he pulled into the Golden Rose parking lot. It was our favorite spot to go to, and I wasn't going to complain. So we walked inside and we were seated at a booth next to a window. Not a whole lot of people were in the restaurant, and Darius was being respectable by sitting at a different table towards the back wall of the establishment. Obviously, he sat in plain sight where we could keep tabs on each other. Every once in a while, I would peer over at his spot and see him reading one of his books that he had to help him out with the whole protector demon job. However, most of the time, my mind was focused on Damien. Time sort of flew by as our waitress took our drink and appetizer orders. My love talked about his current cars that he was working on within his new mechanic position while I tried to understand everything he was explaining. I wasn't a huge car person and would have to occasionally ask him to clarify his statements. But without hesitation, he would always backtrack and ensure I could follow along with the conversation so I wasn't totally lost. As for my part of the conversation, I freely spoke about my animation projects and complained about Natasha again. The most current one was how she argued with my instructor for an hour about character mock-ups she made. The whole purpose of the assignment was to create 3 different kinds of characters that we could possibly work with. Yet our instructor played the role of the client and picked which one we were to work with. For mine, I created 3 different kinds of cartoon monsters. Each had different features and body shapes that made them unique in their own ways. Once my teacher looked them over, he very easily picked one and gave me an A for my efforts. As for Natasha, she created a set of twin brothers and tried to pull them off as 2 separate characters. Again, I wasn't saying her drawings or ideas were bad. I just don't think she grasped the concept of the project fully. So as my instructor told her that she needed to come up with another character idea, she threw a fit on how the twins were 2 totally different people. One was supposed to be good, while the other was evil. Regardless of their personalities, they had a lot of the same body shape and features that would categorize them as being the same character. Regardless of that fact, she disrupted my 3D animating class to talk about that incident and constantly badmouthed my favorite teacher. The whole thing made me furious. Yet I kept my ground while Darius shouted at her for the whole class day.
I don't understand how people can be so arrogant.
Damien stated after my story.
Why can't she just learn from her instructor instead of blaming him for doing his job? He's only trying to help her in the long run.
I know, and at this point I feel bad for the poor guy. He has done nothing but tried to help her, and all she does is kick him to the curb. It's sad to say, but I see his attitude slowly going downhill when it comes to her. He's giving up, and I don't blame him one bit.
I don't either. Why help someone who won't accept your help? Let them struggle then on their own and learn the hard way. That's probably why your instructor looks forward to seeing you in your assignments. You work yourself extremely hard to make them the best you can and strive to expand your knowledge. Not that you are not the only one within the class who tries, but I'm sure you get what I mean.
Yeah, I understand. My friend Harold is really great at animating as well. His projects are insane. However, we both are dreading the future class of team production.
Well, why is that?
Because we don't want to be on the same team as her. She barely turns in her stuff to begin with. Can you imagine relying on her to do her part of a group project? I can see the disaster now, and the class doesn't start for another 2 semesters.
Although it may be scary to think about, she has to pass all of her classes first in order to advance into that class. If she isn't doing the work, then she probably won't pass and make it to the next class. I'm sure everything will turn out happy. But that's enough about Natasha. Let's change it to a more light-hearted subject.
Upon the mood shift, I adjusted in my seat and perked up as we began to move on. Okay, what else would you like to talk about?
How about that cosplay of yours from Halloween? I haven't seen it yet on your social media yet. You still planning on doing that, OC?
At that statement, I grew a little shocked. Damien never really talked to me about my cosplays. It was more me saying what I have done and him opening the app and watching the videos. It was never really his first intention to ask about my costumes. Yet here he was wanting to talk about my demon cosplay. Although I was taken aback a bit, I still answered his question. Yeah, I'm still planning on it. I just wanted to create a story about him before I started anything.
Oh, how exciting. You're actually going to make it into a series?
I mean, I'm still planning on making short videos with him, but I wanted to try something different and make it bigger. So I've spent time trying to figure out what the storyline is. To be honest, that was my motive since the Halloween party. I was just juggling back and forth on what the story was going to be. I considered going along with who Darius truly was and telling the story of us. No one would believe it to be true anyway, and it would help me deal with all of the stress that I've endured. However, there were also parts of those experiences that I didn't want to recreate or live. So I have also contemplated on a different kind of story for the cosplay.
Well, do you have somewhat of an idea? Maybe I could help with it.
I have 2 different ideas for it. It's just one's more complicated than the other.
Lay it on me. I'm a good listener.
Oh, okay, I said, extremely shocked. I didn't think you would take this much interest in it. After that, a brief silence rose as Damien nervously grabbed his drink. That action alone seemed very odd to me, but I decided to brush past the awkwardness and vaguely explain the 2 ideas. The easiest story I thought of was that he was born in hell and struggles to survive within it because of how harsh everything is. Yet somehow he becomes a close ally to the evil overlord and becomes the head commander of the army.
Okay. What about the other one? What makes it so complicated?
He asked kindly. It becomes complicated because of the problems that arise within it. But the idea is that he is damned by Satan because of him signing a contract without knowing the consequences of Satan taking his life. After that, he was forced to become his dealmaker and physically do his bidding on Earth. That's the origin story, though. Not the full one.
Wait, there's more?
Damien asked, adjusting in his seat now. There's lots more. However, the main focus is that after many years of being stuck within hell, he gets a job transfer to being a protector demon for a random child he doesn't know.
Okay, now I think I see why it's complicated. However, I totally dig that idea, and I think you should do it. It's drama mixed with fantasy. A very unique combination. Yet, it is your story, and you can dictate what you would like to do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, I said lovingly. But I am a little taken aback by how much interest you're taking in this. May I ask why? With that question, he began to rub his neck and clear his throat in nervousness. There was seriously something amiss with his reaction. Ever since I mentioned the name Darius, he was suddenly triggered by it. I had to find out why. Damien, can you tell me? Why does this matter so much to you? For a minute, there was complete silence. My eyes stared at him while he was indecisive. Something within him wanted to spill out the truth. Yet he just kept quiet as he saw the waitress coming back behind me with our food. Nothing was said as she kindly set down our plates and asked if we needed anything else. We both kindly said no, and she was gone again. Then, the silence kept up for another moment before I placed my hand into his as it now laid on the table. He gazed at me quickly, but made eye contact with me once more. Within that silence, though, he finally breathed a sigh and somewhat answered my question.
I want to tell you, but I don't want to hurt my mom more than she is. My mother may look okay on the outside, but she isn't and constantly wears a facade. It is a personal issue that my mom is dealing with and doesn't want anyone else knowing besides me. But just know that if you keep him as he is entirely, that I would be grateful for it. I'm sorry, but that is the best answer I can give you for now. Hopefully sometime soon I can explain more. For now, though, I'm sadly gonna have to drop the topic.
Okay, Damien. I'm sorry for pushing the matter. Thank you for explaining what you did, though. I understand. As much as I wanted more than that reason, I wasn't going to push him to tell me. I wasn't that kind of person, and he was trying to respect his mom's wishes. If she didn't want anyone else knowing, Damien was going to ensure that would stay true. As much as it irked me, I would allow my curiosity to eat me alive in order to respect Damien's request. After my response, he smiled and thanked me for everything. I could tell he was appreciative of my response, and from there we moved on to eating our lunch. Of course, small talk was included. However, as I was in the middle of eating, I glanced over at Darius's table and choked on my food a bit. Damien asked if I was okay at first, and I had to lie to his face once more. At that exact moment, I was far from being alright. I don't know what the hell was happening, but my demon was not sitting alone at his table anymore. For as Darius sat on the right side towards the wall, a man with blonde short hair was sitting across from him. Not only that, but they were both interacting with each other. A human being other than me saw him sitting at the table. How in the hell could that be possible? Who was this person and why would he want to talk to a demon? Despite my questioning, I wouldn't be able to find out until later on. Now both of us had things to discuss later. So all I could do now was finish my date with Damien and hope nothing bad happens.
This has been Chapter 15, Sexual Relations, from the book The Forbidden Truth. Tune in to the next video for Chapter 16. Thank you for watching.